you don't just plant a tree. You have to ensure that your site, the three S's, sun, site, soil must be considered. Sun, if you don't have at least 6 to 8 hours of sunlight a day on the tree during the growing season, you won't have enough sun to produce fruit. This area here in the summer gets sunlight from about 6 to 5, so we're good. Site, you have several options: flat ground and sloping ground. They have their, each has their pros and cons. We can go into that at another juncture, but you really need to make sure the soil at your site, which is a sunny one, is suitable for growing these trees. These trees will live, apples live anywhere from 50, 75 to 100 plus years, and you only have one chance to improve the soil before we put the tree in the ground. What people want to do is grab a tree, grab a spade, dig a hole and plant a tree. I would recommend don't be that individual, especially if your soil is not at a pretty high level of productivity, health, function like that. So your run up to planting is critical. Most mistakes, I find most mistakes that are made with fruit trees are made because of either lack of planting or even no planting. So the run-up could be 3 months, as it is in this instance, and depending on the quality of your soil, could be a year, 2 or 3. And you need to provision for the soil before you put the tree in the ground, or you're just wasting time and money. The run-up is pre-apply compost.
So the way that this manure spreader works is it has a conveyor belt that's driven by the PTO shaft on the tractor. It has this angle iron here that slowly moves the compost out. This piece of plywood is set at a certain height so that we're metering how much compost gets to flow through the spreader. And then these discs go ahead and spin around to just help distribute that compost evenly behind the tractor. We have this set based on just measuring weight and how fast we drive the tractor to apply about 5 tons an acre of compost with a single pass of this tractor at about 3.8 miles an hour.
It is critical that you work the soil at the proper moisture, which is a very narrow margin from bone dry to saturated. An easy field test is to, crouch down, grab a handful of soil. So I take it and I just compress it and don't squash the heck out of it. Does it ball up? Yes. If it doesn't ball up, it's too dry. You do not want to work a soil or plant the soil when it's either too dry or too wet. Too wet is much, much more deleterious than too dry. So if it balls up, it's got enough moisture. If then you can kind of take it and throw it and thumb it a little bit and it falls apart, that would be called both good digging moisture and good growing moisture, because this assessment test, this field test, is done both prior to cultivation. Is it at the right moisture, but also a couple, 3 times a week, engaging the soil moisture during the growing season. Is it wet enough? Do I need to water? In this case, we used an implement, maybe the most sweet mechanical implement on the planet, a mechanical spader. It is akin to, as you would do in the garden with a spade, double digging, but on a field scale. And it works the soil in such a gentle manner, it's insane in a good way. So we pre-applied compost, we did our tillage, and then we pulled a seed drill through the area here, and we seeded a cover crop. Grow that cover crop as we have here. This cover crop will, in another month or so, kind of be about this high. And I do this because I don't know what the temperature and the rainfall is going to be, and those are important variables in producing biomass, so we'll see. Anyhow, let's say it's sizable, and then we'll come in We're going to clear around where we're planting the trees now, remove the green vegetation, dig the hole, plant the tree, and then fertilize on the surface and mulch off with wood chips, irrigate, moving on, and it will come in the next, I don't know, 45 to 60 days at some point, and we'll drop, chop, and flip in this cover crop to further ameliorate or improve the soil. And the in-row spacing is 10 feet. These trees are on various rootstocks. Rootstocks that the variety or the scion are grafted to have a range of vigors. Some are very weak and some are very strong. A weak example that we'll be planting here, one of the more exquisite apples in the world, Cox's Orange Pippin. It's about the weakest variety I know. And then we're planting in here an old, beautiful Dutch heirloom from the 1850s, Belle de Boskoop, named for the town it was originally bred and planted in. It's like a tsunami of vigor. It's like Waymondo. So the top part of the tree, the variety called the scion, S-C-I-O-N, has its built-in genetic vigor. And then you graft or bud that onto a rootstock. Rootstock is probably the second most important choice you're going to make after you pick your variety. It will control so much about the tree, particularly its size. There are full-size rootstocks, get you 30-foot tree, semi-dwarf and dwarf, all the way down to mini dwarf would get you a 4 or 5 foot tree, and a lot of gradations along the way, particularly with apples like that. So what do I want here? Part of the planting is I want trees on 10-foot centers. I want the trees to be 8 to 10 feet tall, maybe 4 or 5 feet wide. 10-foot in row will do us. And then the spacing, these stakes indicate where a tree is going to go, where you're going to plant a tree, smack dab in the middle of the indicated stake here. And then we have a 13-foot spacing between row. Alley width or the spacing between rows can be very variable. What has got to go down the aisle? If it's just you and me walking, your alley width can be narrow, kind of a garden scale, 4 or 5 feet like that. If you got to pull a tractor with implements, it needs to be, you know, a couple 3 feet wider than the width of the implement here. So 13 feet will get us here with our tractor and our various implements like that. So, and in planting as per varieties, we've got, what's that old expression? Something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. Well, we ain't got nothing blue. But we've got old varieties, the aforementioned Belle de Boskoop, going back to the 1850s. We've got new varieties, Honeycrisp, or as the growers call them, Money Crisp. Big and new, you know, came out 10 or 15 years ago. And some of these I've grown before, and they are indeed tried and true. Some of these are, well, let's see how this grows here in Central Coast of California at 400 feet, 2 miles from the ocean. This is the time of year to plant fruit trees. You plant what are called dormant bare root trees. They look, well, a lot like this. And you've got a window, and it's a fairly wide window in this area from January through the beginning of March. You need to get these trees in the ground while they are still dormant. Once they've leafed out and initiated root growth, the chances of them thriving or even surviving diminishes. So, and within that window, say Jan, Feb, March, that January planted tree might make as much growth as twice as much as a March planted tree. So the earlier you can get the trees in the ground, the quicker they'll take off, the more growth you're going to get in the first year. And your goal is to get out of the gate, get down the road, get to the finish line. What's the finish line? Cropping, eating fruit. Trees don't fruit until they formed all of their component organs or parts. Entire root system, entire shoot system, internally flowers that then express at maturation and give you flowers that get pollinated and give you fruit like that. So the quicker you can get the tree established vegetatively, the sooner you're going to come into cropping. The varieties here are mixed, mostly old but some new. The rootstocks here are mixed, semi-dwarfing and dwarfing. And again, we're putting weak varieties like Cox's Orange Pippin on slightly stronger rootstocks, one called M111. And the stronger varieties like Belle-de-Boscoup, Pink Lady on weaker rootstocks, two called M7 and a new line of rootstocks bred at Geneva Testing Station out of Cornell University, and there starts with the letter G and various numbers. In this case, it's one called G969, and it's about the same dwarfing size as the M7. That'll give you a tree maybe 8, 10, 12 feet tall, depending on the vigor of the varieties. So we pre-applied compost, we did our tillage, and then we pulled a seed drill through the area here, and we seeded a cover crop. You want to dig a hole that is certainly a minimum of slightly wider and slightly deeper than the root mass. Again, let's look at a tree and talk about a quality tree and its components. A quality tree is tall, yep, branched, oh yeah, and has good caliper or thickness at the base of the trunk. All trees are measured, and it's something you want to know of. The bigger the caliper, the girth of the tree at the base, down towards the bud union, then the quicker that tree is going to establish, and again, get out of the chute, get down the road, get to the finish line, the finish line being the object of our desires, fruit. So bigger is better. This is a bigger and better tree. This is really nice. It is Braeburn, which is an underappreciated, unsung apple. Anybody know the Braeburn apple? Elder statespersons in the crowd, Jim and Katie here, yeah. It is a late apple. Yeah, I don't really like to even look at it till October, even into November. It is a kind of a homely, not the prettiest, jazziest looking apple. Shall I say homely but comely? Yeah, I will. It is a treat, and they're in the markets, but it never really has taken off. It's not as sweet as Fuji. It's a much more balanced apple in terms of its sugar-acid ratio, yep. Thus being a fuller taste, a longer taste, a more robust taste. But it's just kind of like a dull color, and it doesn't catch market share that much. Still worthy of growing, not just for the season of cropping, which is kind of late in the season, and as things are winding down, moving toward dormancy in the winter. Not just for that, but it's like this with any fruit. If you haven't grown it and tasted it, kind of subsistence, hand-to-mouth agriculture, fresh off the tree, you haven't really tasted it. Particularly the apples can be picked when they're quote-unquote mature, and then they will after ripen off the tree. But if you can afford your trees, and as a home grower and even a small commercial grower, you can, maximum hang time. There's ripe, and then there's dead ripe. And if your fruit doesn't have to go far away, say it's just going to a local farmer's market or a local Real Foods or New Leaf or something like that, you can let the fruit hang longer on the tree. And as a home grower, absolutely. So Braeburn, I ate it. I thought it was good. I planted some. And then 3 or 4 years later, I got some homegrown, and I bit into one, and it was a come to the deity of your choice, down on my knees, yes, experience. It has a nice bite to it when you start out. It's acidic, tart a little bit, you know, and then sugar. And then at the end, an aftertaste, a finishing act, as it were, cinnamon. It's like anise aromatic. So you get all those volatile oils up into your nose, and well, it's a positively religious experience. So good apple. We have like 3 to 5 of a multitude of varieties here. And I want to make sure we put them consecutively in a row, so it'll take some, you know, organizing on your part like that. So we have excavated a hole, slightly wider, slightly deeper. Where's that stick, gauging stick? Than the tree root mass. And point of criticality, the bud union here. The bud union below this little bulbous distension, this little stem scar here, this little hook in the top part of the tree, the trunk, is the rootstock, the root system in its entirety, and it has some dwarfing capabilities. Then above the rootstock here is the trunk, the bearing variety. You do not want to bury the bud union. You want it to be 2 to 4 inches above the soil line. In bearing the bud union 1, this is still a very vulnerable portion of the tree, subject to rot if you bury it. The other thing is, if I bury it up to here, I'll get what are called adventitious roots, that is stem roots. That will undo the dwarfing aspect of the rootstock, and it'll grow a 30-foot tree. Certainly won't fit into 10-foot spacing. So you just use some sort of a spade or a board here to gauge that. And how are we? We're good. We're slightly above it, and the reason I say good is because once we water this in, the soil will settle a little bit. Spread the roots. It's not, you know, an exact thing, but just, you know, spread them around a little bit evenly. And you'll notice, or maybe you did notice, fruit tree roots are not symmetrical. There's more on one side than the other. That's just the way they roll. So I'm going to actually now flip it. All right. Because I want the hook in the trunk to shield the scar from where the rootstock trunk was lopped off when the bud was inserted here to make this brayburn. And the reasoning here, and this is probably like not totally important on the coast here, but it's critical inland and hot interior areas, is that the trunk of the tree will shield that vulnerable scar from where the rootstock trunk was lopped off. You can also whitewash your trunks if you live, like, say, in the valley. And you just use a simple water-based latex, and you cut that with half water. And you just paint it on the trunk. After a couple, 3 years, the canopy will be such that it will shade the bud union here. But for now, north facing is oft recommended. And then you, as they say, bury the tree. Of course, not really. You put soil in evenly around, maybe put half the volume of soil in, and then you just lightly tread on it. Again, this idea of good root and soil contact is important. Watering in will do that, but also light treading at about the halfway point, and maybe we're getting there. Let's see if this tree knows how to behave. Sit. Good. Good tree. Let's put a little more over here. And then why don't you ply your boot gently, Ned? Let's see, that's a delicate stomp. And we're off and running. Let's complete the act here. Again, I want to say one thing I want you to do, and maybe I'll circulate amongst you, is just grab the soil, grab a handful, finger it, get a feel for what this field test will yield you in terms of, note this is a good moisture on the high side, but good. It looks and feels like that. It's kind of muscle memory, as it were. Okay. And then maybe you can make a basin if you want. It's not necessary for the initial waterings, but the foot again could come into play here. I got a left one. You got a right one? Oh no, use the right one. Okay. All right, we're good. At some point we'll stop when we get a bunch of trees planted and we'll address them for some pruning. So I have a granular, this product's called Mycos. It's allegedly pure mycorrhizal inoculum, a fungi that lives in association with plant roots, almost all families. Did I overhear, maybe you were talking about the Brassicaceae family earlier? Yeah, well, not brassicas, but almost all families, particularly those that we culture in farms and gardens, have mycorrhizal associations. That is, there's a set of fungi that live in association with the root. Some are external, some are internal, and they are basically root extenders. They will go, whatever the mass of the roots of the tree, they will extend out further. And they're very good at drawing up water, nitrogen, and phosphorus and pulling it back to the core of the root system. So it's kind of a mutualism, as it were. A place to live, some carbohydrates maybe from around the tree exudates like that, and then fostering tree growth by drawing water and nutrients, again, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus up. And you just simply sprinkle a little, these come with a little scoop in it, on the roots. I hold it over the hole so any excess spills into the hole. And that's the good news. I often have jokingly referred to it as magic pixie dust. There's research that says that mycorrhizal association with any plant you're growing can be a positive synergistic thing. And the shelf life is perhaps the issue. It's just how long can these microbes in a, they're coated with clay and talc, maybe a binding agent like agar-agar, exist like that. Doesn't cost much, makes you feel good, might be helpful. Why don't we be dreamers and put some on? There's a little scoop in there. You put a scoop per tree. I hold the roots over the hole, sprinkle it on, and stick the tree in the ground and proceed. We'll then talk more about the fertilizers we're going to use. Oh, what the hey, let's do it now, we're here. This is Sustain, again, composted chicken and turkey litter, 8% nitrogen, that's what I'm mostly interested in. This is alfalfa meal, couple percent nitrogen and potassium, not much, if any, phosphorus. That's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is the growth hormone triaconitol. And so we're going to put a 4-inch pot of the Sustain, which is about 3/4 of a pound, around on the surface. We're going to put a half a 4-inch pot of the alfalfa meal similarly, and then we're going to lightly work it into the soil, cup 3 inches. I brought some pots if they're in the back of my car maybe. There are a whole bunch of different organic certified fertilizers you can get. I'm liking Sustain a lot these days in terms of bang for buck or return on your investment. And then I like alfalfa meal. Again, this is based on research as a growth hormone stimulator. So again, applying it evenly in that 18-inch 2-foot circle around the trunk like this, and then about half that amount of the alfalfa meal.
Do the growth hormones naturally occur in alfalfa?
They do.
So could you use alfalfa as a cover crop?
Oh, look at this. I got a fertilizer applicator here. Whoop, downwind. I'm sorry, I'm joking around. What's your question?
Could you use alfalfa as a cover crop and have a similar effect?
Yeah, you could. You could use alfalfa pellets, alfalfa meal. You could grow alfalfa and turn it in. The advantage of using the meal is that it is super concentrated. And here's something with whatever it is you're putting in your soil as a fertilizer. The smaller the particle size, the quicker and greater the nutrient availability. So I take, nice biomass of alfalfa, drop it, chop it, flip it in. It's going to take a while to be available, and not all of what's in it is going to be available. If I take a fine meal like this, it's pretty quick acting and pretty efficacious. I'm going to say high percentage of that which you want to get to the trees is going to get to the trees. So, you can go either way. A lot of people say, well, just use alfalfa pellets. It will work. That the nutrients and the growth hormones in the alfalfa pellets will probably be available come, I don't know, on the 12th of never or something. No, maybe later this summer, like that. So the way trees grow is they get out and they get going. Our dormant trees that are in the ground are already active. Roots are active 3 to 5 weeks before you see any above ground activity. And their growth, the growth rate and what's growing simultaneously early in the season is like ginormous. Root growth is huge. It's already happening in trees that are in the ground. Roots store carbohydrates in the winter, and they're shuttling them to all parts of the tree for further growth come spring. So this is the way a tree breaks out of dormancy. Roots grow. Flowers finish forming at the end of the dormancy, just before emerging. Flowers come out, get pollinated, fertilized, set fruit. Fruit starts to grow. Leaves come out, branches extend. But you could take a period of about 8, 10, 12 weeks, spring into early summer, and all those organs are growing at a rapid rate, and you need to fortify in that regard. So the idea of enough and a quickly soluble fertilizer or set of fertilizers is appropriate. And the same thing applies to compost. The more granular your compost, the quicker it's going to be available like that. So we've spread the various fertilizers, and then we're going to spread a couple. I'm going to make an executive decision here. Yeah, a couple shovelfuls or spadefuls of compost. This is a bought-in compost. If someone can turn around and bring that galvanized bucket of home brew over here, that'd be cool. Let me grab a handful. Thank you. And then you want to scratch it. You take a fork, garden fork, and scratch it into the soil. So I've got 2 sources of compost here. Down here on the farm, we don't make compost anymore. We used to. We use a bought-in compost, and it looks a lot like this. And to me, it just looks like, floor sweepings, inert. But by analysis, and that's something you want to do when you buy a batch of compost, is get from the purveyor, what is the soil analysis, the nutrient content of this compost, this batch right here. And you see what your NPK and other nutrients are. And basically it tests out good. And then I've got some of my home brew here, which is not as fine, not as particulate, speaks to a slower release of the nutrients, but just like vibrantly oozing with life. That's a subjective evaluation there. Most farms don't make their own compost. We do up at the Chadwick, and we use it, and it's a good thing. So you've relatively evenly applied and incorporated the fertilizer. As I said, a 4-inch pot of sustain and a half a 4-inch pot of alfalfa in this instance, and you want to finish it up with a layer of wood chips. Wood chips to cap in soil moisture, wood chips to protect the surface soil from the driving, degrading forces of the rain. Did this cover crop establishment earlier in this fall. got good establishment, cushioned the soil. Got in a little late here. Shh. Not a good sound. Yeah, it'll work up okay, but sealing the soil off with vegetation or a mulch is to your advantage. Caps in moisture, yeah, and then it protects the surface soil, and then quicker than you would think, and I am constantly amazed by this, you take what is essentially wood, pure carbon, and it breaks down, especially if you put another round on in the fall and then again in the spring subsequently, breaks down quicker than you would think, renders up its nutrients into the soil, and really ramps up soil biology big time. It also really improves the physical properties of your soil, its structure.